RE2, we're back, of course, talking some Final Fantasy IX. We're here with the follow-up to the previous FF9 video that we did, where we talked about some of the leaked information, or there's a lot of leaked information in regards to the animated series, assuming that it is real. I didn't go into specifics with that video, but I did mention having like some more information in regards to the 9 animated series that I just hadn't talked about or made a video about yet, and here we are. Now, the info itself is like behind-the-scenes stuff, which is very important, because there's a lot of like confusion, or whatever you want to call it, in regards to what is happening with the animated series, right? Because we've known about it since like 2021, I believe. And it's been mostly silent. I think there's like one time that Square Enix, I think, kind of slightly acknowledged that the existence of this. And I think Cyber Group Studios, there's like a convention or something that they were supposed to be at, that they were going to show off the 9 animated series or some shit. Like you could go to their booth or something. And I don't know if you ever knew what that was supposed to be, whether that was going to be like a video footage or just concept art or something. But nothing ever came of that. Like I don't think anything came out of that event or whatever. And it's been, as far as I'm aware, silent since then. It's also possible that what we looked at the other day is maybe what they're showing off at like this convention or expo or whatever it was. Because I think a lot of people said that it was like a presentation of theirs to maybe show off their idea for the 9 animated series. The behind the scenes info that we do have is a couple of articles in regards to Cyber Group Studios facing financial issues where they became insolvent, which means they're unable to pay their debts. And then another article in regards to potential buyers for Cyber Group Studios. The articles that we have are from November and December of last year, so they're a little bit older, but I didn't see one of these until January of this year, and again, I just hadn't got around to making a video about it. And the other article that we have is from the same website, but I actually got it from KaiRPG, formerly Kai the Player, if you guys happen to watch some of his Final Fantasy content. It's FF9, FF7 content, or whatever. I guess he rebranded himself at some point. Of course, credit to him, and his video will be linked in the description below. Now, the first article here says, Cyber Group Studios enters judicial recovery process. The company filed a legal notice on November 5th, stating it had ceased paying its bills as of October 22nd, and creditors have a short window to submit claims to court-appointed representatives. Paris-based Cyber Group Studios has entered the judicial recovery process, a form of legal protection that's implemented after a French company becomes insolvent. Cyber Group released a legal notice on Tuesday announcing that the Paris Commercial Court had started this process on October 31st. The court has determined that the studio's cessation of payments, meaning it can no longer pay back its outstanding debts due to its lack of cash and liquid assets, began on October 22nd, 2024. So yeah, this is kind of like the first update that we have, I think, kind of in a long time, at least that I'm aware of. I didn't fully keep up with everything in regards to the animated series over the last couple of years, but as far as I'm aware, kind of the first update is that they're essentially, I guess, like broke or out of money. You can't pay back the debts that they owe or whatever. So obviously at first, before we got the other article, is a bit of a bad sign because we know that they're working on the 9 animated series, and if they kind of go bankrupt or whatever, and they can't finish that series, then we never would have got to see it. But we know that there's another article talking about people potentially buying them. As per standard liquidation proceedings, the court has granted Cyber Group a 6-month observation period, which will last until April 30th, 2025, during which time it can either recover its financial footing and keep the business going, or completely liquidate it in order to repay creditors. If creditors have outstanding claims against the company, they have 2 months after the notice was originally filed to submit them to the court's representative for consideration of payment. 2 representatives have been appointed to oversee Cyber Group's recovery process, Eric Bolland of BCM and Valerie Leloup Thomas of MGA, who both specialize in judicial recovery. Cyber Group signaled that it is facing possible financial trouble near the end of October when it filed a KBIS extract providing a snapshot of its current status to the Paris Commercial Court. In the document, it indicated that its equity, total value, has dropped below 50% of its share capital, the money raised from selling shares. Yeah, kind of the first update there is they were hitting it hard, I guess, later end of last year, potentially going bankrupt, maybe can't pay back their debts or whatever, which certainly does suck. I mean, it sucks for any business to go under, people losing their jobs, whatever. But again, we have another article to look at of, I think, like 4 potential buyers. So there seems to be a decent amount of interest in their IPs and shit. And the other article says 4 potential buyers are bidding for Cyber Group, a joint venture led by United Smile and Newen Studios, are among the companies vying to acquire the insolvent French company in order to get their hands on key asset Gigantosaurus. 4 acquisition offers have been registered so far for insolvent French production company Cyber Group Studios, and a desire to own its Gigantosaurus IP is at the heart of some of these bids. The Paris Commercial Court set an initial deadline of December 16 for takeover proposals, but more bids could come in before the court hearing to determine a buyer, which is expected to happen at the end of January or beginning of February. The last bit was kind of interesting because the court hearing was expected to happen at the end of January or beginning of February. We're obviously most of the way through March now, and I don't know if we have any sort of update on that. If the court hearing did actually happen, if there was an actual buyer, I don't know. I can't really find anything right now. So far, offers have been submitted by a joint venture between United Smile, Toons Media Group, and Hong Kong-based toy importer-exporter Atlas Global, a Parisian live-action studio called Solent Productions, France's Newen Studios, and French media and education company Hildegard, which also tried to acquire Team TO when it went up for sale in September. Ranging from 5 to 60 pages in length, the offers from these potential buyers outlined a wide variety of plans for Cyber Group. For example, the joint venture bid anticipates spending $5.2 million over several years to get Cyber Group Studios back on track. This includes $1.5 million for creditors and $3.6 million to continue business operations and retain employees. Leading this group is United Smile, which partnered with Cyber Group in 2022 as a global master toy licensee for Gigantosaurus. It's primarily interested in leveraging the French studio's animation production capabilities for its toy business. Its plan is to continue production on the 4th season of Gigantosaurus, as well as developing the brand's presence in the digital ecosystem and completing the financing on an animated series based on video game Final Fantasy IX the Cyber Group has been developing since 2021. This article does have some more info on the other offers as well, but as I said, some of these offers are anywhere from 5 to 60 pages long, so they're kind of giving you the TLDR on it. But what I will say is, this is by far the best offer that they at least talk about in the article, because they're wanting to pay off the creditors, keep financing the company, retain employees, build out the toy line with their IPs and shit, also finish the financing on the 9 animated series. Like, it'd be kind of ridiculous if this is not the offer that they took. Also, considering they have like a working history with United Smile, who did like a toy line for Gigantosaurus back in 2022, it makes sense to work with him again, especially to get you out of insolvency. When it comes to some of the other offers, the Hildegard one is just kind of like nothing. It's them offering like $10,000 to like build an ad hoc holding company in Paris or some shit. So it's not even really them trying to prevent them from going bankrupt. I don't know what the point of it is. I will say, though, I did find it kind of funny that there was a company called Hildegard trying to get involved in this with Cyber Group Studios, which is making an animation based on Final Fantasy IX where you do have some airships called Hildegard. Newman Studios, which is owned by French broadcaster TF1 and runs animation studio Blue Spirit as one of its subsidiaries, is only offering to acquire select Cyber Group assets. Specifically, it wants the Gigantosaurus, Final Fantasy IX, and Zoo IPs. If Newman is successful with its bid, Blue Spirit would take over from a production and brand management standpoint. Blue Spirit is also one of Cyber Group's creditors with signed production contracts for Gigantosaurus. So this is probably the second best offer here, depending on how much money they'd be willing to pay for those IPs, because they just want the IPs. The company can still exist and do whatever the hell it wants to, if they have enough money to continue, obviously. But they just want Gigantosaurus, Zoo, and the Final Fantasy IX animated series, which is kind of interesting. I wonder if something like that works, right? Like, does Square Enix get involved in that? Because they're obviously making a animated series based on one of their games, right? So, like, can they even sell the rights of the Final Fantasy IX animated series to another company like that? Or does Square Enix have to get involved? Does Square Enix get some of that money too? I wonder how that works. But again, similar to United Smile, this is a company that Cyber Group has worked with in the past, and specifically, they've been a creditor on the show Gigantosaurus, which I guess is like their biggest IP. I don't know. I don't watch little kid shows. I don't have a kid myself, but apparently it's a really popular TV show, right? But there's somebody that have funded that animation before, and there may be somebody that Cyber Group currently owes money to. I do find it kind of interesting that they are making an offer on specific IPs, and one of them is Final Fantasy IX. I don't know if they just like the direction that like Cyber Group is going with that animated series, or they just like the Final Fantasy IX brand, if you want to call it that. Like, they just like what maybe they could do with that animation or series or whatever, or just being attached to the Final Fantasy brand in general. I don't know. Like, it's kind of interesting that that's something they want, even though that's not even really a show that exists yet. But that is 2 companies out of the 4 here that specified Final Fantasy IX. Like, that's part of what they're wanting out of like these acquisitions, these offers, whatever, which is pretty cool, because I love me some Final Fantasy IX. The final bidder is Solent, but there's not really specifics on what like their offer is or exactly what they want. I'm assuming maybe just the entire company or some shit. But they're like a live action studio that transitioned into animation back in 2022, and I guess they just maybe want to expand their animation library or something. As far as I'm aware, that's kind of everything, right? These are articles from the end of last year, November and December. There's supposed to be some sort of court hearing or some shit, potentially at the end of January, beginning of February, of a buyer for the company or whatever. And I don't know if we have an update on that yet. I've tried looking around kind of everywhere, right? On Google, on their social medias, on their YouTube channel, their Twitter account, on their website itself, and they just don't really update shit at all. Like, some of that shit's not been updated since literally a year ago, March of last year, sometimes as far back as like 2023. So they don't really use like the social media super often, so I don't know. I can't really find anything. So that is something maybe we could all kind of do together as a community, right? Be on the lookout for any kind of information in regards to Cyber Group Studios and the Final Fantasy IX animated series. Kind of what's going on with that. There's got to be some information out there, right? Because there's supposed to be some sort of like court proceedings, like almost a month ago at this point, creeping up on potentially 2 months from when it was supposed to happen. Right, so there's got to be like some sort of an acquisition, you would think by now. I mean, they're obviously going to let somebody acquire them, otherwise they're just going to go under, right? And again, that first offer with United Smile to me is by far the best, because they're going to pay off their creditors and then put another couple million into funding their fucking shows and shit, right? So like, why wouldn't you take that offer? So in my opinion, I think the 9 animated series is going to happen at some point. It's just kind of a matter of when, but also kind of how far along were they? They've been working on it since 2021, right? But how deep did they get into making the show? I mean, did they even really start making it? We had like the pitch thing, but like, did they actually start making animations and voice actors and all the other shit? I don't know. I don't know if we know that much information. Obviously, there's multiple companies interested in the Final Fantasy IX IP for an animated series, so I think it's going to happen eventually. Just a matter of when. But as of right now, that'll be the video, my dudes. We'll link to kind of everything in the description below, just kind of whatever if you want to look into this stuff yourself. I will say, too, that looking into the Cybergroup Studios, I did come across a Vice article from a handful of days ago that talked about like kind of leaked information that we looked at the other day in regards to the animated series. And they have actual images in their article from the leaked images that I was talking about. So I don't know if maybe you are allowed to show that stuff off. I imagine if you couldn't, then maybe Vice wouldn't be allowed to, or that article got taken down. But maybe I'm not 100% on that. I don't know exactly. I'm just trying to avoid getting a strike on the channel, obviously. But I'll link to the Vice article, too, in the description. Anyways, though, that is the video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Search works in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, @YT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Low Gain, or leave it like Cobain.